Hello there, this is a quick tutorial, or rather it might not be that quick, on how to model a bottle in LightWave and some of the little tips and tricks that I use along the way. So we're going to start off in Modeler. Forgive me, I do use shortcuts, so I'll try and use the menus as much as I can, but I've been using it so long that I've forgotten where half the stuff is now. What we'll do is we'll start with the bottle and make sure our grid size is about right, so we'll get that down to about 20 ml will do. We'll do a simple plastic bottle. So I'll start off with a 60 ml radius, 30 ml radius rather, 60 ml diameter bottle, and I'm going to do ridges. So I'm thinking adding vertical ridges in this bottle. So I'll create enough geometry at the side so I can pull these points in. And I start off, rather than lathing it, I like to start off with just, depending on the object really. And this is a simple cylindrical bottle, so we'll just start with a simple cylinder, and we'll make sure we've got enough. I'm using the arrow key here, arrows up and down, to change the amount of size we've got, and then arrows left and right, they split it up. Now we wouldn't ordinarily need to, because I'm going to actually put a twist in these ridges. I need to allow enough geometry so that they'll twist properly. So there we go, we've got 30 sides. I'll go back to 24 sides. Nope. Make it a nice round number. 40 sides. Okay, so we've got a simple cylinder. And we're going to use sub-Ds as well. Now, subdivision surfaces only work on, and they're the basic subdivision, sub-patch here rather than Catmull-Clark. They only work on 3 and 4 sided geometry, 4's are the best. So these won't work. So if I press the tab key now, you'll see what it looks like. Slight change there, but that big one won't change. Not a problem. We'll be getting rid of those eventually. Right. Now I'll just using the bevel key here. Modify is probably a multiply. Yep, bevel. And the secret is with, I assume, any sub-D patch modeling. Just hit B. See the shortcut B. B. Hit it quick twice, and you'll get another one. Get out of the base. When you hit the here, you need to create another layer in like that, and that will make sure that when your curve happens, it will happen nicely. I'll show you what I mean. So it's coming in there, and it's hitting the ground, and then we can safely come in. And to constrain it, I'm holding the control key down, B again, and they're going to come up to create this dimple. Somebody the other day did tell me the name of this dimple, who's worked with wine bottles. I really can't remember what it was, but it was very useful to know at the time. Then another double bevel again, just to make sure that these remain horizontal. And there we go. That's a sub-D base. What I will do is I'll bring in, I selected, oh yes, should that. Pick a couple, select the right arrow key, and it'll select the loop. You can go into selection and select somewhere here. There's a select loop. I'm sure of it. Let's see it. That's not select ring. No, there you go. Select loop. There. Right arrow key. There. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these up a bit more. That was a plus key then. That highlights the, just shows only the chosen geometry. That's T for transform. Up a bit more. In fact, we might get away with another select loop. And press tab. So now we've got like a little base, and that will give us some nice refraction when we come to render the bottle. It gives some variation in thickness, that kind of thing. Right, and the same for the top of the bottle. We're going to do a very simple. Oops, go away windows. Just simple bottleneck, just for the purposes of this. Going back to multiply, back to bevel. Press B twice again to go out and into bevel. So let me undo that. I'm going to constrain it, so press Control whilst you've got B chosen, and double click to get rid of the selected geometry. Right, press Tab. We've got some weird stuff going on. I've only got, I created a teeny tiny bevel there by the looks of it. Highlight those, press the minus key. No, we've actually got, right, some are sub D and some aren't. So if I go to Polygon Statistics up in top right hand corner, press Sub Patches, that'll show me those are sub patched. Press Tab to get rid of them. Now we can see what it would look like all tabbed. And what we want this bottleneck to be a bit straight. So what we'll do is, again, we'll just slice through here. Oh, we do that properly so I can see what I'm doing. I'm pressing the knife tool here in the multiply tab, and that gives us everything after here is reasonably straight. You can see there's a little bit of a curve. If you're really anal about that, you can put another one in. Shift K is your default for knife, and then I just press numeric. If you press numeric again after pressing the tool before, you'll get your old values back. So you've got the same value, so you can then just shift it, just click where you want it to be. So you can get another one, and then I think after that one is, here you go, straight. But we won't bother, we're not that bothered by that. Now this is essentially the base bottle, and I'll bring my layers tab over. I like to keep them nice and neat. This is, we'll call it glass outer. I'm going to copy and paste this. So copy into another layer, paste, and this will, what we're going to do is create the inner glass. Now, whilst we're going to create a sort of a twist and a ribbed effect on the outside, the inside we want it to be smooth, as if it's been moulded properly. Again, that will create different thicknesses of glass, which will create different amounts of refraction, which will look, a bit prettier in the end. So we need to shrink this in a little bit by the minimum wall thickness that we'll have on this bottle, which we'll say is about 3 millimeters. That seems like a working real scale here. That seems like a decent number. So we'll select all of it. We'll flip it, which is just the F key, flip, and then we'll smooth shift. Now I'm going to guess again that this is in there's a multiply, smooth shift. The menus in LightWave are dead easy. If you're adding geometry at any stage, it's going to be in the multiply menu. So whilst I don't know where smooth shift is in the menus anymore, I can have a good guess as to where it is because it's adding geometry. So smooth shift, press Control down to keep it, constrain it, and then we're going to come in by, actually let's make it 3 mil, why not? No, 2 mil seems a bit better, 2 mil. And let's see what it's done to the geometry at the base. That's you've got some weird stuff going on there. Oh, actually, let me go back, delete that layer, back to layer 1. We've got to tidy up this. To get rid of the geometry that won't turn sub Ds, just choose bevel again, constrain it, bring it in, and then highlight it, so the plus key, choose them all, and then it's going to be weld average, which is, oh crikey, I do not know where that is. I know it's weld average in the detail, and then just delete the little remaining 1 point polygon in the middle. And now you've got, that will also sub D now. Right. There you go. So if I go into just textured mode without any wireframe on, it looks neat enough. This one we won't worry about just yet, I'm not bothered by that. Now back into, copy it, layer 2, back to where we were, flip it, this is our inside of our glass bottle, select it all, smooth shift, so multiply, smooth shift, constrain smooth shift, so in by 2 millimeters. And there we've got our inside of our bottle as well. Check the geometry is not starting to overlap underneath here, else you'll have to do some. Have to look at the what's going on. So you've got nothing weird going on. We have got some slight weirdness. No, that's fine. Back up to the top again. These bits now, if we put outer glass bottle layer in the background, we can see that this lines up. This is all protection wireframe on again. This ridge here lines up with that, so we can actually move that. So modify, move. Get rid of the large polygon. So now we've got, I'll flip this back again. So we've got inner bottle, it matches up with outer bottle. So if I choose both layers, and get rid of that big one again, we've now got a complete bottle, inside and outside skin. Merge points, M for merge points, just to make sure, right there, fine. We're going to rename this glass inner. And back to layer 1 and we'll name that glass outer. And again over to the layers panel, we'll name that glass outer. So they'll all match up. Put that back. And save the object out just to be safe. We don't want it there though. Let's choose a proper directory. Alright. As you can see, those I've already prepared earlier. Bottle B, this one. So we've got outer, inner, and then we'll do liquid as well. Let's do liquid now whilst we're at it. The liquid we'll assume comes to about here. So we just copy that geometry, copy it, layer 3, paste it, rename our layer liquid, and name the polygon. So Q for naming stuff, liquid. And then we're going to flip those back again because liquid is facing outwards. So that's our liquid. And then we need to select all those, press P for polygon, and you've got a nice big circle. Now what we notice with glass, make sure I've got the inner glass in our background layer. What you need to do when we come to surface this, we're going to use the dielectric node for the glass. We may use dielectric or something else for the liquid. But you need a small offset, because if there's any overlap between the geometry at all, if one intersects into another one, then it can mess around with your refraction, and you could spend ages scratching your head as to why the thing's not looking quite as you expected. So rather than, because we're going to do an operation on all of the geometry, we don't need to select it all, waste of time. We can do that and do it, or we can just leave it like that, and LightWave will assume everything's being done. And it's smooth shift again, so you will multiply, smooth shift. We're going to constrain and come in just a tiny bit. I mean, it can be 100 euro. In fact, we'll do let's numeric it. So N for numeric. We'll do minus 50 micrometers. It's just going to be tiny, so we won't notice it when it's actually rendered. And if I subdivision that, flip to layer 2 and subdivide that, we can trace it around with our eyes, and you're travelling 50 micrometers inside everything. The only place that will mess up is up here. Because we've got no other geometry beyond this point here, it's wanting to splay out. So we'll create some more. We won't worry about that just yet. So unsubdivide it again. Back to layer 2, unsubdivide that. So we're working with similar stuff. Now you'll notice with liquid that you tend to get, at the edge, you get a little where you've got the surface tension, the liquid likes to stick to the glass. So what I do is I'll press B for bevel, and I'll just come down a little bit. So we create like a little dimple. Bevel it again in it a little bit, and then we'll do a bigger one, and then the final one, which will be the one we'll smooth, we'll weld average to. So plus just to highlight geometry, select it all. I've got Control Shift W set up to my world averages is just so useful. Control Shift W does it for me, which is there. Toggle to polygon mode so we can see that 1 point polygon, get rid of that, right in the center, and then highlight back everything back again. And if I press tab now, flip to layer 2 and tab that, we can see it's a bit better now. I've added more geometry, but we're going to have to squeeze these in a bit. So select them all, go somewhere I can still see the center. And I'm going to use the resize tool, which is actually the stretch tool. Make sure it's in 0, 0, and Control to constrain it in both axes and just bring it in a bit. And that should, it's not constraining it, obviously I've got it wrong. That should be fine. What I might do is, just to be sure, is select these. Okay, select loop. And on knife tool, Shift K. I'm going to pop another slice in there and see what happens. Okay, we've got a slight time, but it's actually constraining it a bit better now. So what I can do is I can select all of this geometry. Got my H tool selected, and just come in a teeny bit. In fact, that's 99%, which is too much. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go to numeric. We'll do 99.9 and 99.9. So it's doing it in the X and the Y axis. The X and Y, also bear in mind, that depends on, we're actually in the Y axis here. So it's horizontal and vertical is what they're saying. So we've chosen the Y axis. We're doing it with our tool on the Y axis, heading down to the screen. And then the horizontal and vertical of that axis. Don't get confused by it's the horizontal and vertical of the real world item. It's the axis you're working in. Just hit apply. Comes a tiny bit. Just do it so once it's overlapped, we're fine. There you go. It's overlapped. We're good. So now we've got. I go to smooth, slight little crease around the edge. Just again adds a little bit more detail to your object. So save that out. S for save. So now we've got layer 1 tabbed, layer 2. And layer 3 and layer 1, 2. Again, we've got some, that looks weird at the top of the bottle, don't like that. What we will do is we can now merge those two again. So I've got the, actually no I won't, I'll leave it. If I untab that though, show the wireframes, we need to create this as a hard edge on the inside. They're always hard on the inside. So select a couple of them, right arrow to loop, and we're going to Bandsaw Pro this. Oh great, it's already set up, wonderful. So what I've done is, on here you've got 95% value. We can change that to 70 if we want to, and you see it shift along the faces. It'd be nice if we had a real world measurement in there as well we could use. That would make it a lot easier in some ways, but we haven't, so we make do with what we've got. So that will be fine. The outside we'll leave rounded because that always looks nice, a bit more realistic. And inside we'll do the same thing. Select a loop, Bandsaw, and let's not triple it, Bandsaw Pro. Now that's obviously decided that 95% is down there, so we're going to, 5% will be a lot larger because it's a larger polygon, so we'll probably come down to 1%. Yeah, fine. Now if I subdivide it, you get a nice harsh edge, which is what we want. Right, saved. Back to layer 1. We're going to add in our twist. So what we'll do is there's no real shortcut for this. We're going to pick every other group of polys, or points rather, on the edge. really do need to invest in a new mouse. Okay, there we go. And now we know the bottle's only 2 mil thick, we need to project these out. So again, H tool, the stretch, and we've already got it set up in the y-axis with nothing. So we want to go out. So we'll do 101% and apply until we think the ridges are fine. So we already sub-D'd it. So yeah, ridges, they'll do. Deselect, back to polygon mode, and now we want to twist the bottle with, so from there we'll choose where we want it to go, from there down to the bottom. This is modify, twist, and if I just pick the center point and twist it, it does it from the top, which is, it's quite funky. But that's not really what I'm after. I'd like them to sort of start in smoothly, come down and go out smoothly, so a bit of tension on each end. So if I undo that, we'll add a bit of fall off, and we'll see which way around this does it. There you go. So rather than that way around, I want it to start at the top. We don't want to twist the geometry at the top. That doesn't want to happen. So I'll flip this. So there we go. That kind of thing. That's what I'm after. And we'll make sure we do it by a neat amount. So we've got 40 sides. Angle, mine, so it's 360 divided by minus 40. Minus 9 is not going to be enough, but that's, multiply that by 3. Minus 27. Minus 54, let's double that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Right, so now we've got a bottle out of glass. We'll grab the inside layer and we'll cut that and paste it. The only reason we're doing that is we want to join the geometry up here. So press M for merge points. 40 points eliminated, and the outside looks awful. But again, we need another row of geometry in there. So select loop, knife tool, shift K, press N for numeric, which will give us that horizontal cut back again that's been hanging around for ages. And we'll bring that up there. So spacebar to drop tools, double click, drop selection, tab, and then we've got, well, again, it takes too long to flatten out, so I'll do another one there. And it's not that that's annoying me apparently, it's this top bit here. So I'll undo that. That's this bit. We'll add in select loop, another Julian, bandsaw pro rather, and that's way too close. So we'll do it at 50. That's better. What I might do actually is I might just pick that, select loop and smooth shift. So shift F to smooth shift, and just bring it out a bit. Create a little lip, and we'll have to undercut that lip again to stop it from blending in. Select loop, knife tool, and for knife tool numeric. There we go. And then make that a bit larger too. We'll stay in sub-D mode now, see what we're working with. Let's get rid of those. The selection. Okay. Right, so now we've got a bottle. Inside is glass inner, outside is glass outer, and then we've got a liquid, so I'll bring the liquid into the next layer. Layer 2, rename my layer liquid. and save it. Right, now environment, dead simple. We'll just start a new object up. We're going to have, zoom out a bit, so a meter's worth of ground. Make sure that's resting on y-axis 0. That is our Q to bring up the change surface. Ground. Background, again, dead simple. New layer. Shift X for your create box. And we'll do that as, make sure it's in the 0 on the Z axis. Q. Background. That's it. Save object as environment. Let's borrow that name. These are all B. So bottle B, environment B. Send that over to layout. Send object to layout. That's there. Back into modeler. Choose bottle. Send object to layout. Perspective mode. My shortcut key is 4 for that. I'm not sure if that's default. So we go to our camera and press 6. Run camera view. And we'll just line it up. We'll put go P for properties. Camera properties. We'll pick oh yeah. We want an upright image really. I mean, that's not really that important, but and I'll stick to sort of A4 convention. So let's do, if I put the multiplier at 50, if I type in 420, which is 210 mil times 2. I mean, it's all pixels, but it just helps me. 594. That's your A4, and then if I 100% that's a bit more of an impressive size. Shift C to go in camera mode. Properties again still. We'll make sure Y for rotation will still not rotated. We'll change the camera lens. Make it a real lens camera. We'll do Canon SLR rather. Let's pick something like 5D. A lens. We're going to shoot on. It's a studio shot, so you have a telephoto lens on, so it gets rid of any what I call donkey nose distortion. I'm not sure what the correct terminology is. And we'll go for a dedicated 50mm. There you go. You just choose that one. No radius fall off because you can do that afterwards if you want to. That's just darkens the edges out as if it was a lens, which if it was a real lens, that'd be awful to have that much irradiance in it. Minimal samples will be fine at that. We'll change the threshold down to 2. Reconstruction filter, box, and classic sampling pattern. The 50mm, where is that? That's up here. 50mm. So that's more as you'd get. We don't want to really change the rotation in the pitch or the bank or the heading for that matter. So we've locked the rotation. That's it. Yeah, that's good. Now if I control F9 this, so basically turn VPR on, just there, that's what you get. Beautiful. Right, let me save this scene out. Save scene as bottle B. Notice I still don't use spaces. It's an old habit. Network rendering sometimes used to mess up with them, and I've kept it just to be safe. So that's what we've got. Nothing too impressive at all. Now I'm going to check, make sure subdivision surface is turned on. Yes, it is. And if I go across my service editor, I'll just bottle B, glass inner, smooth, glass outer, smooth, liquid, smooth. So everything's smooth. As you can see, it looks so much better. What we'll do is we're going to light this mostly with we're actually going to light it with it at all. We're going to light it plainly. We're not going to bother with global illuminations. It's just not worth it with these bottles. We're going to add a reflection on which will reflect in the bottle, which will create an illusion of some sort of lighting. For that, if I go to my somewhere, wherever it is, Windows, image editor, no, backdrop options, there we go, it's F5, or Control F5 rather, as a shortcut. Add environment, add texture environment, rather than image world. It's in the y-axis. Hit texture, which brings up this tab, and we'll do spherical. I'm going to load in my kitchen probe, which is it's not strictly speaking a cylindrical map image, but it's got a bit of black in there because it's just a circle, but it does light nicely, and at the moment it doesn't really show anything. If I go to right, our background image, or background polygon rather, is flipped the wrong way. So into environment, flip that, show that back out, now I can see it, and also move it backwards. So object, let's name these layers. Ground, backdrop, save, back through. Now you can see when I'm picking, I've got ground and backdrop, environment B. So backdrop I know is what I want. T to move, just like in Modeler, and in VPR we actually want to show overlay. So now I can see my helpers, my handles, whatever you want to call them. I shuffle that back there. Bring it back here a bit actually. So that's to save it. Right. Now you can't see the impact that has had at all on the glass. It makes no difference whatsoever until I go to Surface Editor. So let's open that up. And let's change the bottle. We're going to use dielectric nodes. So glass outer. Let's click the nodes. We're going to use those. Smoothing's on. Smoothing is affected in this main panel. Everything else is in the nodes now. I've ticked that. And down to materials. These are beautiful. So much easier than setting up in the old surface panel. Just click in your material to material. So this is our surface. All the various attributes we can affect, and the material node basically overrides them. So that's great. Then you can start seeing the reflection appearing in the bottle. We'll just make things life easier. We'll just right click and copy that and add that to glass inner. So now we've got some sort of glass, and liquid we'll just leave as a mundane grey for now. And when it comes to the layer itself, well, first of all, actually, one thing we've got to know, if I go back into the side view, the bottle, again, like I said before, if anything's intersecting the glass at all, it can make it look weird. And if you see this bottle here, it looks slightly, is it below? It's infinitely in touch. So it's probably fine, but to be safe, we're going to shuffle it up. Now I'm going to go into Scene Editor first to make sure all my objects are stuck together in a hierarchy, which they're not at the moment. So glass outer and glass liquid aren't parented to each other. So I'm going to parent that to the glass outer. Now if I move glass outer, the liquid will move with it. And I'm going to move it up ever so slightly. I'm just going to do it in, again, 50 will do it. That should be enough to give us some sort of clearance. You can see visible clearance now, so we know we're safe. Everything is clear from everything. Control F9. Okay, and then we're going to give a nice texture to the ground. I've chosen for this just a simple concrete texture. So if I load it up, and we've got concrete, we've got bump, diffuse, normal, reflection, and specularity, and they've even got handy little amounts on. What I'll do is I'm going to do this as a node in that case, because then, for obvious reasons, if I have to bring an image here as a planar and then map it, as a Y, and then I scale it and position it. I've got to do that several times. If you get the right node set up, let's get rid of that, shift and click, get rid of that. If I do the right node setup, it takes away some of the aggravation. So we might as well do a quick load node setup. If I grab my images and load them all in, all of the concretes, and we'll base them again, that sort of a funny size, not square or what have you, so 3.8 by 1.9. We'll start with 3.8 by 1.9 meters and then work our way down. We'll keep the aspect ratio fine. So we'll start off with 2D textures. Let's add a 2D texture node, just an image, because that's what we're after to start with, an image, and we'll plug that into, that's the color one, into the color. We'll pick the diffuse one. It's going to be the y-axis, and we'll say it's 3.8 by 1.9. The y doesn't matter because we're projecting it downwards. And let's see what happens with that. It's a bit tiny. It's a bit large rather. So we'll divide that by 2. Usual maths, you can use maths in the numeric fields here. A bit better. It's coming down a bit more. We might as well make the most of. Yeah. Right. Now to save us having to do this for everything, this point we're going to add in constants, and we want a vector because that gives us 3 values. So we'll type in 0.95 meters, no meters, and point was at 0.475. Yeah, 0.475. And if we add that to the scale, there you go, it hasn't changed at all, hasn't changed. But now we can change these values in the vector and it changes the scale for us. You can even rename that R for rename, and we'll call that scale so we don't get confused. Now what that means is then now if we want the bump map, so I'm going to highlight that node, copy, Control C, paste, Control V, change the image in this one to the bump one. There it is. It says bump 20. Right, okay. So if I just drag that down to scale, and that across to bump, then we've got a bump already attached, and it's the right scale, which is good. And opacity 20. We don't have to copy their values they're suggesting, that's just values they're suggesting. Shrink that down so we can see a bit more. Right, and we've got again specular. Shape set as 25. Ooh. Oh, I don't like crossing things. That annoys me. Must be a bit OCD about that. I choose the Luma because that's the black and white values. We don't mean color. I assume might do the same thing as well. I've not really tested it out. And glossiness, which is also, so you get specularity, glossiness, especially 35 gloss 10. It's the same one. And the vector is a scale. Make my nodes a bit larger. And lastly but not leastly, we've got the node. And the node is a different, it's not an image map, it's a normal map. Sorry, I've got node, the normal node. Same scale. I've also got reflection too there, obviously, yes. Put the normal map in there. Now again, we've only got one rather flat light in this, so it's not going to be too interesting to look at, but when we start adding a few more lights, you'll start seeing this. And then reflection as well. Move these guys down, make space for reflection. Copy paste. Scale. Let's do reflection. Now they say 100, I mean that's a lot. Normal. Ah, right. So that is our bump. 20. 100. Glossiness 10. Specular reflection. Normal and bump. Save object and save, sorry, save scene rather, and save all objects. So now we have some sort of concrete texture. We can tinker with the values after that, it doesn't really matter. Right, now the light source. Let's go into the light. We've got one light at the moment. It's probably, yeah, get rid of ambient intensity. We don't want that. It's a distant light. We don't want that. We want area light because nice softer shadows. If I press 5, which is a shortcut to go into the light view. 5. And I can then press T and Y to move and rotate. Changes bottom left hand corner down here. Move, rotate, and use the mouse. It's already not a bad setting really. So we'll keep that there. And the backdrop, but we're going to make this bottle sort of a reddy colour. So we want to pick colours to sort of accentuate that. Backdrop, so let's make the liquid red, just to, whoops, wrong button, because my service is here. Now for the liquid, I'm going to have a tinker with some other nodes. I'm going to try the Sigma out to see what happens. That gives me options of transparency, surface, and specular colour. So, in my rather naive understanding of this, you've got a base colour, which is surface colour. You've got a specularity colour, but then you've also got an absorption colour. So, as light travels into it, the light that's absorbed by it changes. Let's test it out. Surface colour. Let's make the surface a red. So, just dragging these red, green, blue values down. That's our surface colour. That's our red cranberry juice or whatever it is. Then we've got a specular colour. Well, specular is nice to have. Let's just do bright white. To any light that hits it is white. And specularity will raise the specularity so it starts picking up the reflection as well of the environment. Roughness. Well, is it rough? The roughness. What that does is the specularity increases. And here he says, in advance, we've got the reflection is basically ray tracing and backdrop. So the backdrop is the kitchen image we had, the kitchen probe. So it's picking up the backdrop and the ray tracing of the environment that's there, which is basically the ground and the back view. So if I go to specularity, if I had 100%, that is reflecting everything around it, and there's not much of its own colour. So where we were, 35, that's reflecting something, and it's adding highlights, and they're clean, decent highlights, as if it was a polished surface. Roughness just roughens it up. Now it's not necessarily a sand texture, it's extremely fine. So if you looked at anything sort of like a matte plastic, that has specularity on it with an awful lot of roughness. Everything is reflective. So if I add a bit of roughness on, just a tiny bit, say 2%, for any impurities in the liquid maybe. Translucency 80%, that's how much, that's the light passing through. And we'll change this value. I don't know what effects it'll have, so I'm going to do a green. And so far I can see no real change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a limited region, proper render, and see if that makes a difference, because sometimes in your VPR you won't get everything that you're after, especially when you start dealing with the more exotic settings. We'll do a quick preview and we'll see what that's looking like. I can't see much green there at all, really. So, okay. We'll leave that open, and we'll change the distance to 20 millimeters. This is how far, as far as my understanding is, the light penetrates. And we'll see if there are any differences at all in there. So toggle up between the two. Oh yeah, there's a difference. Let's say it's amazing. And absorption, let's try that setting. Let's try 1. No real change at all. So 0.1. We'll do refraction at 1.5. That's glass. I'm not sure what juice would be. Translucency 100%, and I'll bring that back down to 10 mil. But I'll add on. I'll make it a yellow colour that's going in there, because that's probably more likely what we'll have. Okay. Yeah, well, I think I'll leave it at that. I do like the idea of a bit more. If I change the distance of 50 mil. No, don't like that at all. Back down to 5. There you go. You're getting it as it happens. I mean, this is me tinkering. I've done a version of this before, but yeah, I quite like that. For now, we're going to pick it out. It's still quite flat, so what we're going to do is it's the lighting. So we'll leave that as it is. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And save all objects. Save scene. Yes, save scene. And back into. We could change. You see, VPR has got a non-draft mode, which gives you closer to what you're after. In fact, we'll keep that on for now until we're pretty sure what we're doing. Right, the backdrop we want. This is a fruity drink, so we want something nice and bright and fruity, but maybe a bit sophisticated at the same time. So we're going to change the background color of the environment background, and we're going to give that an orangey color. But there you go, slight sort of sun blush type thing, but that's too much. So we'll bring it back down, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add a light. We're going to make that translucent, 100%, really simple. And what we'll do is any light now that gets added behind that will shine through as if it was onion skin or a tree leaf, that kind of thing, or a really bright torch under your hand where you can see the blood vessels, that kind of thing. So if I've still got my OpenGL overlay on, let's go back to F9, back to normal wireframe. We'll add a light, item, add light, so just do a point light, nice and simple. Backlight we'll call it. And in the top view mode, zoom out, we'll move that behind the object. So in the scene there, you can see it's sat behind, and we'll leave it at floor level. No, we'll raise it slightly, and we'll give it fall off. So I go to P properties for the light. It's a point light, light intensity fall off. We'll do inverse distance. We'll go over 5 meters. And we'll see what effect that has. Or I should bring that back down again. This is going to be like the light, for want of a better word. Control F9. Light, too bright. We'll bring down the fall off to 3 meters, maybe 2 meters. We'll lower it so it's a bit more like a sunrise. And there you go. You've got an ah moment. And again, that will add more. That adds more interest to the edge as well, where the glass is refracting. We can change with intensity, we can change the colour of that, so if you want to make it a magenta-y colour you could do it, but I quite like Which I made it a bit more yellow there, a bit more magenta. So that, yeah, so that softens up the colours in the background. So we'll leave that as is. And do we want to let it fall off even more? No, we don't. That was perfect. Inverse distance 2. Ooh, interesting. Inverse distance 2 is a harsher fall off, more realistic. 0.75. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. That's more like it. So from behind, you can see what's happening there. Save scene. And then we shall change the floors, looking a bit dodgy now. So what we're going to do is we'll change the texture of that slightly. So the ground is grey, and we'll add a colour node, plug that into the colour. That's a background colour. And what we'll do is then we've got to change the value, because whilst we've got red going in, we've still got this massive image sat in there blocking it. It's doing nothing, so we've got to blend it. So we can multiply screen, the usual thing. So if we multiply it, screen it, yeah, that might be, screen might be the way to go. Change the colours so it's a bit more lifting. Ooh, but not that. Watch me struggle with my colour matching. We don't want it too colourful because it's going to affect everything. Let's try and change this to multiply, no. Additive, maybe. Henry, the mild-mannered janitor, could be. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not totally happy with that. In fact, what I'll do is I'll bring the values closer together so we are closer back to it. Just give it a tint of something. And then what we're going to do is we shall add some depth of field onto, because that will blur that harsh line in the background, which is not what we want. So into camera panel, depth of field, just turn it on and look at the mess it makes. Now if I come back out of VPR, so Control F9 into perspective mode, we can look at the depth of field settings. So go to camera, that's showing us that dotted line around the outside. That's our focal point, which is not far off, to be honest. If I remember rightly, the camera's 1.11, wasn't it, in the z-axis? So we're going to increase that focal distance. Only updates once you let go. Yeah, 1.11. That's near enough on the face, so that's good. So now let's do it in depth of field. There you go. Preview. That's not looking bad. If I do that, that's giving us a sharp bottle, and it's picking out the object. So the foreground's blurred, background's blurred, and the object becomes a bit more of the focal point. We still need to light the floor up a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in. Well, actually, first of all, I'll play with the background texture environment. Let's rotate it, see if we can get anything in the horizontal axis. Let's see if we can rotate that sky probe and get something a bit better. We want it in the y-axis for a start. Ooh, don't like that at all. There's a strong highlight, so I'm rotating it. I did quite like what we had before, to be honest. Good thing about the kitchen probe, it has like a dark side and a light side. Right. I did prefer the one we had though. So I'm going to go back to that, because that's the black being picked up. Yeah, we'll leave it. So I like to get a nice black line down the front. get sort of hit and miss. You're not really sure what you're going to get. Let's try watching the pitch slightly too. F9. Let me check my node settings out for glass again. Glass out, edit nodes. So yeah, 1.5 absorption. We don't really want to. That changes the colour of the glass. We don't really want to change that. Black glass. Rely on transparent anyway. Yeah, we'll leave that. They're fine as they are. Okay. And then we'll add some. Yeah, we'll add a light in to the to try and change the sort of the mood, because at the moment the background's light, the bottle's light, the actual floor is still quite grey. So we'll add another area light in and turn off depth of field. No, we don't need that. It's done its job. We've got one area light up here. It's quite a large one. We'll copy that. In fact, what we'll do is we'll put fall off on that too. I tend to like using fall off on my lights. So back to properties for that. Let's see what difference it makes without any light at all. Okay. Let's add 50% for that light. Copy that. Light. That's light number 2 now. I'm going to shuffle that one over so it's a bit further over, more of a down light. If I get into the light, 5 to look inside the light. That's it. And then see what difference that makes. And we'll change the colour of this light to a warmer colour. And again, we'll do inverse distance fall off. 2 meters. 3 meters, because that's, as you can see, that's only just. But we'll bring it down. We'll make it a bit smaller as well, so scale it. And shadow colour, we'll add in some complementary colour, so we'll add in some blue to that. Now we want to lift that juice in the middle, so what we can do is, now we've got it in a separate layer, I'm going to add a light specially for that. It's going to be another point light, so I'm going to copy that one, but I shall rename that juice. In fact, we'll rename these at all. Top, rename that glow, and rename that last one that we can't see main. So back to juice. Bring it forwards, place it above, and now that's lighting everything, the juice, the glass, everything. Beauty about the lights, in the properties panel for lights, objects, we can turn things off. I'm going to turn off ground and backdrop and glass, which is actually glass everything. Now it's only, that light is now only affecting the liquid, and we can do what we like with that. So we're going to bring down the fall off and change the colour on it to something, and let's change the photo even more. We'll change the inverse distance, because that's probably too harsh for this. And we'll change it to 200, and let's see if I, in fact, let's change that to even less, 50. How far are we from the object? Just curious as to what difference this makes. What we can see. Right. Let me mess with the liquid. Oh, come back. So is that a bottle liquid? Translucency is 100%. 200. Yeah, but it doesn't really help. What if I did that? Right, so a quick bottle test. The VPR is not being too bad to us, really. It's giving us what we're after. And absorption doesn't really. I clicked that pass light inside. I'm not quite sure what that does. Right, but it's brightened up. It has brightened up the liquid quite a lot, which is nice. I'm going to get rid of the roughness too. I don't think it's really needed. And we are seeing some detail in the bottom of the bottle too kicking in, which again is good. Right, so I shall leave that as there and save all objects. Now again, I'd like some sort of stronger highlights on the sides too, and what we've got, and we've got the options of area lights, but they give quite, whilst they are a big square of light, which you would assume that thing up there, that big pink thing, a bright big white light that size, would show up. It doesn't. So we're going to use light cards or light boxes like they do in a studio shot, and that's very simple. It's going to be a polygon that is the right colour. So if I make up some light boxes, I'll make one up, and we'll just make them square, and they'll be, we'll do it metre by metre, centred. We can always rescale them, and that's white. No, we'll have one. Our dominant colours are yellows, and then we'll do complement them with the blues, purples. So we'll do a yellow, and I shall name that yellow, and we'll copy that into another layer, and we'll have that as a mauve. There's going to be thousands of people saying that is not mauve, that's a cyan. But there we go. Right, that's mauve. So we've got yellow, mauve. We'll name that layer as well so we can identify it. Save object as color cards. Whoa. Oh dear, capitals. Right, send object to layout, and they're nasty. Unless that's the look you're looking for. So we'll scale them down to 0.1, and the other one as well. Scale down to numeric 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. And what we'll do is, we can't see them yet, so we'll bring it up. That's the yellow one. The yellow one will have coming from the left, the bright side, the good side, the dark side, light side. We don't need pitch or bank, so just the horizontal makes it easier for rotating. And if we look at it, let's do it in solid. shade of solid. We've got one side, we haven't got the other side. We'll make it long so it actually does reflect properly. And if I turn on that now, you see we've got a highlight we can then add on as we want to. What we'll do is we'll go into our surface as well, and we'll make it luminous and get rid of the diffuse, so it shows up even more so. And you get this nice stripe going up all the side of the bottle, as large as we want. And the downside, of course, is that obviously the closer it gets, the harsher it gets, the further away, the softer it gets. So we can control it by moving it around. Problem is, we've got this glaring great yellow thing in the scene, and we've got this shadow cast in the scene. So easy enough to do. Just go to Object Properties, Render, and let's see, Unseen by Camera, so we can't see it. It doesn't shadow anything, it doesn't self-shadow, it doesn't cast a shadow, it doesn't receive a shadow. It's not there. It's as if it never happened. But it is. It's genius. Do the same with the mauve, stroke cyan, stroke purple, stroke whatever. It's definitely not cyan there. Resize it. Again, we don't want to rotate it any other than the horizontal. Back into F9. So these are giving this one. I want a bit more subtle. I might even settle down the yellow, to be honest. It's just adding just a fruity hint of something else. There. The yellow one, we're going to dissolve it slightly. To there. Yeah, there. I'll bring it back. No, because it's showing too much in the glass. Again, I could. Probably we're not seeing much of it. There we go. Right, let's bring back the mauve a bit. Okay, so we've now got lighting left and right. We've got backdrop ground I'm not too unhappy with. It's picking up a bit more detail now. We could probably go with less foreground depth of field, but that would mean basically bringing the camera in further, so there's more background to blow out. We've got no bottle stopping, but that doesn't matter. What I might do is, no, I'll leave it at that. We'll leave it as a more. I've got the camera quite low, is what I'm thinking. I could lift the camera to get more detail of the top up here, where the liquid stops, the surface of the liquid is. But by doing that, I'm raising the camera. I quite like this sort of dominant low shot where it's looking gigantic and imposing. So I shall leave that as is. Save all objects. Save scene. Next thing is the texture. We'll pop a texture on. Right, we're going to label the bottle now, and you've got a few ways you can do it. You can try and create a label that's the right size and slap it on, but we've got a really weird surface there. You could unwrap the outer glass as a UV map or a cylindrical map, whichever way you want to do it, and add it to the texture. The problem you've got by adding a texture or a label directly to the glass is that you're replacing the glass node with an image map, and that means your refraction and things will be wrong on the inside of the glass. You have to think as if it were a real object, and in a real world you've got an entirely glass bottle with a piece of paper that's stuck on the back, and it's sticky on the back, and you just stick it to the glass, and that's the way it happens, or a piece of plastic or whatever. You've got two physical entities, so that's what we're going to do. And again, like our small shift, we're going to just lift it slightly off the surface so it doesn't affect the glass at all. So if I take let's get rid of VPR for a start, Don't need that on anymore. And come over to the bottle. Again, I'm going to choose the outer bottle, copy it, bring it into layer 3 and paste it. And I'm going to smooth shift it again, so Shift F, out by, let's do 100 micro, 50, no 50 should still be fine. And the smoothing's weird for some bizarre reason, so what we're going to do is change the smoothing angle till it looks right. I might have to go higher. Nope. No, I know why I've done that. It's because, let's start again, I've taken the inside and the outside. So glass outer, copy that. So highlight that first, then take that through, and then smooth shift that. So Shift F, numeric, there you go, that was 100%. So if I undo it, do it, undo it, do it. Tiny. If I put layer 1 in the background, you see there's no overlap. There is a slightly here where we've got this little ridge, so we'll get rid of that. And here we're all good. There's a slight gap there. It won't matter. In fact, to be honest, we won't, because it's spiral. We've got to keep it like that. So that whole surface is now 50mm off. I'm not convinced it is 50mm off. We'll do it again. We'll do it 100 micrometers. Because we've got some twisting in there, it might not quite come out as far as we'd like. We'll soon see. If it's wrong, we can fix it. Get rid of that. It doesn't matter how messy it is, because we're going to concentrate on the bit. The only bit we want to worry about is sort of here, where we're going to put the label. The rest is just there to keep everything in the right place. If we removed some of these, this one will no longer deform correctly. You see, it will stick out. It'll look odd. So we have to keep it all in there. Now this, we're going to label, pressing Q for change surface. We're going to label it label. And the same goes for the layers panel, so we can identify it in layout. Quick projects, you don't need to worry about that, but it's just a nice habit to get into. I'll take it back, and now we've changed it. It's awful again. It's gone horrible. And we're going to use a clip map. So we're going to have a color map, which is the color in the label, and as is going to be text, which is the albino stuff that you saw. So we'll have a clip map that cuts that out, so you won't see any of that grey other than where we want it to be colour. So if I head over to Photoshop, then I've nicked the business cards. What I'll do is I'm going to amalgamate, come up with something. In fact, what I'll do is I'll base it on the proper bottle. So if I go into here, pick that side, just screen grab. So now I know my shape. Press new. Just bring in from the clipboard, and then we've got all of that. And I don't have to worry about, because I'm going to do quite a tall thin one, I don't have to worry about too much about the distortion. So this is just going to be a planar map straight in. You could cylindrically map it if you're doing one the whole way around, in which case you wouldn't bother screen grabbing. You could for the height, or just work out how much of a circumference you've got by using your pi r squared malarkey, or 2 pi r rather. So that's our side profile. And I'm just going to drag and drop some of these objects on. So bring that over. It's nice and large. So scale it down. I'll have that at the top. This chap here will scale there. Put tagline at the bottom. And then this chap. Right, okay, can't see it. Edges. No, that's right. Messed that up totally. Okay. Right, not the best label in the world, but it's something. Now what we'd do is, let's merge those two layers together. So we've got our design, get rid of those. Now what we can do is, we'll duplicate that, and then with curves, we'll make that a black version. We'll have another layer underneath it, fill that with white, merge those, and that's our clip map. Clip map, it's actually an alpha, but it's a clip map, it's a black and white map. So where there's white, there'll be transparent, where there's black, there'll be colour. Now the problem you have often with clip maps is that because we are alphaing, let's get rid of that, we don't want that anymore. Because you're alphaing to these pixels here which aren't quite solid red, you see the black is just a copy. You've got this grey one here, this grey pixel with my little magnifying glasses, that is going to alpha to half of the colour behind. Now half of the colour behind is that, it's a pink colour. So you'll have a half pink colour showing through. So what it will look like on a transparent object, we have solid red, then it'll go to pink to white at the edge. And you'll get this little white halo around, which looks a bit naff. So what we need to do is we need to grow this colour, this red. Now you could quite easily slap a massive big red thing over that and just fill it in. You could just scribble it over, like, whatever, with proper settings. You could do that, and that would mean that anything the black was over, the white was over, would cut to that. But that's a bit naff, and also we've got a lot of detail in here which won't work. So what we'll do is we're going to try and expand the colour of the objects. Now I may have chosen a slightly too lower res here, in which case I shall have to redo this, which will be fun. What we'll do is we'll select, just control click, that highlights everything that's text in that layer. We'll contract it by, this is not going to work, 2 pixels, they're far too tiny. We'll feather it by 1 pixel, and then we'll filter other minimum, and we'll do a 3. Oh, how if I did it in the proper layer? You need to inverse it first rather. So inverse the selection, and minimum offset. It works well enough for what we'll need. It's basically you've created an outline that spreads out from your chosen stuff. So that is, believe it or not, it would work better with a higher res image. You wouldn't get the sort of gradation of oranges here, but we won't notice that gradation. So when the black kicks in, it's going to pick out the orange. That works with anything. that you need to do a clip out, a clip off. So if you've got a picture of a person, for example, you want to composite into a shot, and they've got all the different colours around the outside. Do that. Just select them, bring the pixels in by sort of 3, feather it by 2 or 1, inverse the selection, and then use your minimum pass to pull the pixels out, and it will pull all of the colours out evenly. It's a nice way of adding a sort of a halo effect that you need of the right colour. So that now is our colour map. So if I go into this PC project, this queen, no, bottles, images, we'll do ping. Oh, there you go, albino clip B. And then that's actually albino colour. And then this one's a clip map. So now we've got our bottle. I'll come over to the label, and will I bother with? Do we do it node? Let's do it node again. Why not? It's nice to have the choice. Image, load, color B. Pop that on. I'll do it in the Z-axis. Automatic sizing. It's a little bit wide. Okay, that's about right. You can see it's all blurry and spotty, and it's oversized. So once we add the clip map on, right. Now I don't know about the clip map in node, so I'm going to go back out and do it in the other way. Well, I could leave that on there, but I can't copy the surfaces then, so I will do it in here. Automatic sizing, scale 5 centimeters. And then we can copy that to a clip map. Bring in the clip map image rather than the color image. Well, the color's not doing a bad job. And there we have that. Let's make it a bit luminous so you can see what's going on. Not the best design to use by any stretch of the imagination. We could just have it as the white albino, which might be the better option of doing it. But it gives you an idea of how to do it. And then again, you can add that clip map. I'm sure there's a very clip map node that you can use instead. Or just turn on smoothing for it. That'll pick up highlights a bit better. Reflection, might add a bit of reflection in, or we might not, because that's getting lost. Yeah, we'll leave it at that for. And that's essentially how you do it. We've got, so that's clip mapped everything else other than that. Of course, what you have got is on the back of it, no doubt, you've got the reverse. So you might want to label your bottle forward backwards, or if you're cylindrically mapping, it won't matter then. But that's essentially how you can model and texture a bottle reasonably quickly. You can add, rather than that translucent background, the sort of sunrise background we've given there, you could add your image map instead, so you give some sort of feel of an environment. The same goes for the concrete texture, and it's quite a boring texture to use, but you could use something more interesting, wooden planks if you're doing a rum, that kind of thing. Oh, actually, that's one thing as well. We've got those highlights too at the edges. Now it's probably because I'm using a low amount of samples, but I'm also using an HDR image. Let me see what I'm using. sRGB. Yeah, so I'm using a range that can work with HDR images, but what we have got in the render panel is the option to limit dynamic range. Now that, in theory, should fix that problem to an extent. Yeah, let's compare that to the original one. There you go. What it's doing is taking out all the really high highlights, the the brightness beyond your standard RGB 255, 255, 255, and it actually does it does a cut pass over that. It gets rid of anything above a certain level, which helps with these hot points. I mean, the hot points are real; they're there, and they're in the image, but they sometimes give you effects you don't really want. So what we'll do is for the final one, I'll just raise the minimum samples up to 32. We'll leave that at 0.02. We won't oversample. So maximum samples 32, minimum 1. Reconstruction box. If you're getting really bad noise, you can always go to a soft. So you box soft or Gaussian soft or Gaussian even. But I don't like them. I find them gives them a bit of a blurry image, and sometimes you don't really want that. Some people like it with animation; it tends to work well. But 32 should do it, I'd have thought. Yeah. And then just do the final image.